So, hi everyone. Now I am going to continue with the advanced imaging part 2. So, in the part 2 I am going to give you a brief idea of interpretation related to other advanced imaging techniques. So, in part 1 we have discussed about the CT, that is computed tomography. Here I am going to give you a brief idea of how to interpret other advanced imaging techniques. Okay. So, first let us give a glance to the various planes through which the image of the structures can be viewed. So, that is axial, sagittal and the coronal plane. So, just have a good capture of this picture of various planes of how they are being obtained. Okay. So, next first let us discuss about the MRI. So, MRI is nothing but magnetic resonance imaging, right. So, it is actually a non-invasive mode of obtaining an image. Why? Because a magnetic field is being used here. The patient is being light in a magnetic field so that the hydrogen ions will align within the magnetic field. And when a radio frequency pulse is given and after which it is stopped. So, for example, if the radio frequency pulse is being given first, and then when the radio frequency pulse is turned off, there is little amount of stored energy that will be detected as a signal in a scanner. Okay. So, when a radio frequency pulse is turned off, the stored energy is detected as a signal in the scanner. Okay. So, it is a non-invasive mode and a magnetic field is being used here, and it is more appropriate for the soft tissues, right, and when particularly to the head and neck region, the salivary glands, the articular disc in the TMJ as well as the tongue, the MRI can be used to be to obtain the image of the soft tissues, because the soft tissues are more appreciated in an MRI when compared to a CT. Okay, but MRI being costly when compared to CT, most commonly the CT images are being obtained, but when compared to head and neck, for the brain, for the salivary glands, for the tongue and for the articular disc, is better to obtain an MRI image rather than a CT image. Okay, so I feel you need to have a little idea of what is T1 and what is T2 image. Okay, little idea. So, when a radio frequency pulse is being turned off, so at the end of the radio frequency pulse, during the relaxation, okay, there is loss of longitudinal magnetization. 63% loss of longitudinal magnetization to return to equilibrium. That is nothing but T1 relaxation time. Okay, so there is loss of so there is x-axis and y-axis for every hydrogen ion, right. So, loss of longitudinal magnetization to return to equilibrium is called as a T1 relaxation time, and here it is accomplished by transfer of energy between the spin, that is the hydrogen nuclei, and the surrounding molecules, that is the lattice. So, that is the reason it is called as spin lattice relaxation time. Okay. So, there is loss of longitudinal magnetization and transfer of energy occurs between the spin and the surrounding lattice. So, that is the reason it is called as a spin lattice relaxation time. So, that is regarding T1. Now, coming to T2. So, when the radio frequency pulse is being stopped, here what happens is the magnetic moments of various hydrogen nuclei will interfere with one another, will again cause the nuclei to dephase. Okay, so here what happens is the hydrogen ions or the hydrogen nuclei, the magnetic moments will interfere with one another, so that this hydrogen nuclei will dephase. So, here it results in loss of transverse magnetization. Okay. So, loss of longitudinal is related to T1 and loss of transverse is related to T2. And here, since the magnetic moments interfere with one another between the various hydrogen nuclei, so it is called as spin-spin relaxation time. So, spin lattice is T1 and spin-spin is T2. Clear? So, another important thing is of how the fat and the CSF appears in a T1 weighted image. So, mnemonic is fat and CSF if you write, so BD, that is the BDS, and for T2 again write fat and CSF, it is opposite, that is DB. So, the CSF appears to be bright in T2 weighted image. Okay, so this is again important thing for you to remember. Okay. So, I feel there's a little importance of why the CSF appears to be bright in T2 weighted image. So as I said, in T2 weighted image, there is spin-spin lattice relaxation time because the magnetic moments of hydrogen nuclei will interfere with one another. So a fluid has a lot of hydrogen nuclei, like a synovial fluid or cerebrospinal fluid, the CSF or the synovial fluid, it has a lot of hydrogen nuclei. So there will be lot of interference of the magnetic moments of the hydrogen nuclei with one another. So that's the reason it could be why the CSF appears to be bright in a T2 weighted image, because there is a spin-spin interaction, right? So there are more number of spins in a fluid. So that could be the reason of why T2 weighted image appears to be bright with related to CSF and synovial fluid, especially these two. Okay, so it is my concept. I have thought of this concept. It is not clearly given in the textbook, but I feel that could be the reason, because of the spin-spin lattice, or sorry, spin-spin interaction or spin-spin relaxation time in T2. Maybe that's the reason the CSF to be bright in a T2 image. Okay. So why it is so important for us is especially to view a TMJ, the articular disc, that we will be discussing further. So coming to the MR angiography, so it is a technique for detection of the vessel system. Okay, so vessels which flow are indicated as bright linear structures on an MR angiography. So you can see they are seen as a bright structures. So it is simple non-invasive method for examination of course of carotid artery as well as its branches. Okay, so here a contrast agent can be given in order to get a bright linear structure or a bright appearance of the vascular structures or a vessel system, and also to identify any vascular diseases, and also to determine the arterial supply to hemangioma. So this is regarding the MR angiography. Next, coming to the MR xylography. So it's again a non-invasive contrast procedure for depiction of parenchymal lesions in the salivary glands. It can be used in patients with acute inflammation. But on MR xylography, it is like for extraglandular and intraglandular portions of parotid, submandibular, and also the path of duct branches are indicated from multiple angles, and they are seen as bright homogeneous linear structures, as you can see in the picture. So they are seen as a bright homogeneous structures, and salivary obstructions are again seen as high signal intensity. Okay, so just remember this thing. Okay, so that's it. Next, now if you see this, if you have to assess this MRI image, whether it's T1 or whether it's T2, right? So here if you see the articular disc, it appears to be dark. So articular disc, you know, it is an S-shaped structure, right? It is surrounded by synovial fluid, right? So if it appears to be dark, it implies that it is a T1 weighted image, right? Simply, we have discussed T1 weighted image, the CSF or the synovial fluid like structures will appear to be dark. So here if you see, it is darker in color. So it implies that it is a T1 weighted image. So here if you see, now the articular disc appears to be very much bright. So it is a T2 weighted image because the synovial fluid is present there. So that has a spin-spin lattice, or sorry, spin-spin interaction or spin-spin relaxation. So maybe that could be the reason for appearing to be brighter in color. Okay, so spin lattice is T1. Okay, spin is T2. So in fluids appears to be bright in a T2 weighted image. Okay, like CSF and synovial fluid. Clear? So this is how you have to assess an MRI image if it is given. So mostly they will ask you related to TMJ, because most commonly it is indicated for TMJ or the parotid glands or the other salivary glands as well, or related to the carcinoma or any other malignancies related to the soft tissues like the tongue. Okay, so like that you have to assess. So that is regarding the MRI, little concept of what is T1, what is T2 and how the structures appear in T1 and how they appear in T2. Okay, so little concept, if you have an idea, that's enough. Next, coming to the brachytherapy, just know what it is. So it is nothing but a radioactive source is being like placed into the malignancy or into the carcinoma in order to treat it. Okay, so in this method, though it is invasive, the adjacent normal tissues will be spared. Okay, so the advantage is the normal tissues or the vital structures are being spared. The disadvantage is it is invasive. Okay, so interstitial is it is again of three types. So interstitial, so it is placed into the tumor or into the carcinoma or the cancer or the malignancy. So for example is a carcinoma of the buccal mucosa. So the radioactive substance is placed into the tumor. Intracavitary, so it is placed in a cavity. Okay, so for example the nasopharynx. So interstitial example is buccal mucosa, intercavitary the nasopharynx. Okay, cavitary, so it is placed in a cavity like nasopharynx. And mold therapy for a superficial, it can be placed superficially, for example the carcinoma of palate. Okay, so it is nothing but a radioactive substance is being placed in a tumor in order to treat it, right? So that is regarding the brachytherapy. So do note the examples which I have given here. So carcinoma of buccal mucosa, interstitial, carcinoma of intracavitary or nasopharynx is intracavitary, and mold therapy is carcinoma of palate. Okay. So now next going for the xylography. So here a contrast agent will be given, will be injected into the ducts, and the normal conventional radiograph will be obtained. So as to know the exact, like to know the exact cause and exact condition what is being presented by that particular salivary gland. Okay, so now this is a normal salivary gland appearance. So first one is a parotid gland. So parotid gland appears to be tree inventor, whereas a submandibular gland appears to be bush inventor. Okay, so this is a normal xylographic appearance. And now if you see, this is a sausage string appearance. Okay, so sausage string appearance is seen in xylodockitis, that is inflammation of salivary gland ducts. Okay, that is a sausage string appearance which is seen as a xylographic appearance for xylodockitis. And this is a cherry blossom appearance, as we know it is seen in Sjogren's syndrome. Okay, so this is the xylographic appearances. So they can post a picture and they can ask you. So just have a good idea of how they look in a salivary or how they look in a xylographic image. So xylography is nothing but a contrast agent is being induced and a conventional radiograph is obtained, and the classic appearances like sausage string appearance, cherry blossom appearance, and ball in hand appearance for benign tumors. Okay, so these are the various appearances. So just have a look of it. Okay. So now a simple question for you. So which of the following conventional radiograph is better to view a xylolith? Okay, so xylolith if you want to view, so better conventionally if you want to view a xylolith, if you have a doubt that there is a xylolith there, it's better to go for a occlusal radiograph. Okay. As you can see here, the xylolith is clearly appreciated in a occlusal radiograph, and other indications of occlusal radiograph is to see any supernumerary teeth, okay, the xyloliths and other calcifications, and also to know any buccolingual expansions of any tumors. Okay, so for all this the occlusal radiograph is being indicated. So that's it students, it is a little brief idea of how an MRI image and how the various xylographic appearances of various diseases related to salivary glands and the brachytherapy. So just little idea you need to have regarding these various advanced imaging and various advanced techniques related to radiography. So just have an idea, that's